Hey, what's up? Adi here from Hit the Road Music Podcast. Thank you for your lovely feedback on the first episode with Brad Fry, the founder of Desert Records. If you want to start a record label, check this interview out that we had. Brad is a loving soul and give you a really good insight on his new business model, how to make a record label and build a true relationship with the artists. Today we have a very special guest for you. His name is Lars Deutsch. He is film music composer since 20 years, living now in LA. And man, this guy has some really good inside view, especially about music licensing, film music composing, especially in those times where our mailbox is full with sell your own songs, get rich quick. We will talk about this kind of offers and get a really honest opinion from an industry professional in this interview. As always, let me know what you think. If you have any questions, leave a comment below there. Don't forget to subscribe, get notified when we release new podcast episodes, new music videos, interviews, and all kind of stuff. Thank you for your support and enjoy the interview. Hello everybody, today we are here with Lars Deutsch. He's currently in LA, and thank you very much for your time on this podcast. Please let us know, who are you and what are you doing?
So as you said, my name is Lars Deutsch. I came to LA as a film composer, but I've, like many other people, I started playing in bands and all of that. And I at some point playing in bands, I got more and more interested in songwriting. And very early on, I kind of noticed how a lot of people wanted to build a business or wanted to build a craft without really looking into the actual craft, which is, I don't know, it's kind of weird. And so very early on, I wanted to get all the colors and all the things. I wanted to be able to tell a story with music. And so I did this with songs for a while. But when I studied classical composition. I have a bachelor's and master's in classical composition. And when I finished, after working, and I had classical works performed at the Salzburg Festival, and I love classical music, but I wanted to get this thing back where I write music and maybe have a cool band or something. And while I was working on this, I talked to a kind of very established, successful producer who needed a choir arrangement from me. And when we were talking, he said, basically it was a time with Napster, MP3s and all of this. And when we talked, he said to me that that if you would call certain A&Rs to say, hey, can you come and help me move? They would jump in the car, drive 6 hours and would help him. And if he would send them a demo now, they wouldn't listen. And he said the reason for that is because the music industry has changed so much that there is no point for a business person to listen to a demo at the moment when you don't know how you can monetize that. And he said he is jealous of me. And you need to keep in mind, I'm just out of university, I have no credits, nothing. And I'm in his villa in this amazing studio. And he says, I'm jealous of you that you can do film music and stuff like this, that you can be a tool for other people like this. And if I were you, I would focus on that. And I was doing both at the same time, but for a little bit, I thought, okay, this is a good idea. Maybe I spend more energy on meeting filmmakers than meeting artists and A&Rs and stuff like this. And that was in Germany in the beginning. And then my film career started, and I started to write more and more for film. At some point with a project with Joseph Fiennes and Ian McKellen, I was shortlisted for an Oscar here. I came here and to LA. And so I'm at 350 something films and commercials now. And, but I also, at some point here, I needed to score a surf film, kind of like a small personal coming of age surf film. And it needed a lot of music. And I was thinking how I can do this on a budget, but also to have enough sense and detail and something that adds something. And so what I did is I basically here on Craigslist, I put an ad and I said, hey, this is me. I need I need to set up a fake band to write an album. And I want ideally somebody who is into surfing. So had a couple of meetings, and it was just great. Kind of these two guys, very talented, that worked with me. I kind of developed them a little bit, and we did a whole album, and those 14 songs are all in the movie. And then I realized how much I miss working with people like this. And then I started to develop artists again, and with people hearing how that sounds and kind of, yeah, the quality of my work, I now get booked a lot to very often write for artists who have not managed to find their sound, or artists to kind of like write so it sounds that the artist wrote it. And so, full circle to your question, I'm a composer, music producer. I co-write with a lot of people, and every now and then I also, or pretty regularly as well, I do mix films and commercials as well.
Oh, wow, that's amazing. That's amazing. So much skills, and I think you can share a lot with us and our listener. So we got already the motivation behind it. Since when are you doing this? Since when are you writing film music, and since when did you start it with the artist development?
So I mean, I started music later than most people that go and study classical music, and I started. So I tried a couple of times as a kid, and my parents, they dragged me to kind of like keyboard school, and I was the worst of all the students. And like, I have very nice parents. They just basically said, okay, he just wants to play soccer, and they let me go. And then in that tiny village I'm from in Germany, all my friends, there's two things: soccer and heavy metal. That's really what it boils down to. And so at some point, I don't know, I got the guitar bug, and then I practiced like crazy. So that was relatively early on. That was 15 or 16. But when people hear that, by the time I studied classical composition, I spent 5-6 hours studying every day. So I kind of like tried to cram 10 years that I didn't do as a boy, or as a teenager. I crammed that all in a short amount of time. And yeah, and then I started to, like write for my own, like for my own band and my own stuff first. And I've been doing this kind of professionally for almost 20 years now. And yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. So I started also the same way with the guitar. I wanted to be the rock star one day. I think it's a good foundation to jump into a ever-changing business like the music industry.
It is. I had a very, like, a kind of an important moment for me. It was like, so I had the Ingwie Malmsteen like high-speed guitar video at home and that kind of stuff, and I was sitting at home doing like 8-finger tapping and trying all of this, and I went to I don't know, like, Jennifer Batten clinic to see this, and yeah, so that was me for a while. And then I was at some international thing where you had like teenagers from all countries, and there was an Italian guy who basically had the same idea. He was playing a Dream Theater cover band, and so we were in some corridor, and we were both like, just like guys do, showing off our technical chops, who can play the scale the fastest or something. And yeah. There was a girl, like, wonderful woman, and we're still in touch many years after. And she picked up the guitar for both of us, and she said, "I know 3 chords. Let me teach you, you idiots." And she played 3 chords and sang a song, and it was so much more meaningful than our like shredding and bullshit. And I was like, okay, maybe there's a lesson here. And since then, it's all been about story.
Wow, this is amazing. I like the story. I would have a question for you. Like, maybe we can go more in deep into your role in the music industry, like writing film music. What are the things you have to take care of? How does a normal day from you look like?
So my normal day really depends on the client. So what I need to be very flexible. I mean, we're recording this in December 2020, so that means this year things are slower or different. But on a in a normal year when people are shooting all the time, one of the things that really makes my business is when other people have an emergency. So one thing that I need to arrange my life around is that I can jump on something and I can deliver quickly. So I actually, just like a fire department, I run drills here and stuff to be able to do things really, really snappy. And I mean, one example for this is that I had a long week, worked on a lot of projects, delivered, and I was tired. It was Friday afternoon, and I was like, okay, I'm taking my little coffee break. I drove somewhere, I ordered my coffee, and I got a text from like, okay, hey, we need for the Masked Singer. They wanted to replace the music that is the Who song in the Masked Singer. We need this and this and this and this background brass, this and this and this and this. You have 24 hours. So this is the kind of thing where the break is over, you just gulp down your coffee, you drive home and you call your singers that and said, hey, I need a demo in 8 hours, which I have to write and arrange and do all of this. And then you need to be able, in a short amount of time, to deliver something that really works. And so that's part of what my day is this being able to respond. And also with licensing briefs, very often I get a licensing brief at 10 o'clock here where it says deadline is 12. So I have like 2 hours to respond. And so that's a big part of my setup. I'm currently, we are very close to finishing up an album. And so today I'm going to meet with the artists. We shot music videos and pictures. We're going to talk about the strategy, the rollout. We have 2 more songs that we want to add, but 10 songs are fully mastered and ready. So we're starting promotion with this at the same time. Later on today, I have developed and composed and produced soundscapes for a big hotel chain. So I don't know if you watch this at some point and you're in a Citizen M hotel and you set up the alarm, you will have some of my work. And so they need another pass at something. And then I'm producing an artist in London where I will need to talk to them and update the demo. And I think that's most of the day.
Wow. So I bet many people have the same question, like, how do you manage this? How do you manage this day?
I think that one thing that I really learned is that I organize less now. I used to have all these lists and all of these plans and all of these ideas, and I'm a lot happier and a lot more productive that I organize less. And so you have this, what is urgent, what is important, and you make a choice there. But I really try to just I have a sheet of paper here with 5 things on it that I try to accomplish on the day. And the rest is just finding little mechanisms and little tools. And I think like a lot of people, I send myself, like I have an email account that is just there so I can send myself emails. So I'm somewhere, I talk to somebody and then, okay, this goes there so I won't forget, or iCal invites or stuff like this. It can get tricky when you work, like sometimes I work on film projects, which like, I don't know, it's like 12 commercials. They're all different cuts of a similar thing. And then they give you a feedback, and the feedback applies to 7 of this commercial, feedback 1, feedback 2 to 5 of them. And the other day I had a project for Condé Nast, who owns Vogue and a lot of these magazines, and they have their own TV channels. And they hired me in the afternoon and they needed it by midnight. And so while I was sending something to them, there was a feedback loop there and they would get back to me. And so there was this constant kind of ping pong game and disconnect because one person wanted this, the other wanted that, and then I didn't have the asset for something. But it's just part of it. Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. That's amazing. I think these are very valuable information because what we were talking about before, my mailbox is full with emails. Hey, jump into music licensing, jump into TV, film music, quick and easy. But maybe there is something you can share with us, like the truth about music licensing and about artist development.
So the truth about music licensing is when the music industry crashed, the people that had power and something to say and connections used those to set a pipeline and basically pivot into licensing, which basically means by the time that a normal person hears, oh, music licensing might be interesting for an artist, it's already over, because it's just and there's, you know, Netflix and National Geographic and others, they try, Netflix just basically bought a big music supervision house here and integrated it. So what that means is that a lot of information that you get about music licensing is not correct. A lot of people who want money for services are, that is not a necessarily legit thing. What I see is that it's first of all, you need to understand that the project is king. So it's still a lottery. It doesn't matter how good your material, it's still a lottery. And then it's about trust. And if you cannot, you have two options, basically. One option is you sign with somebody exclusively and hope that they pitch the music like crazy. And here I would strongly suggest that there is an endpoint in this exclusive deal. So meaning, like, if you see in 2 years there's no movement or something, that you can move on or go somewhere else. There is a chance that somebody has done a good job for you and there's still no movement in 2 years, but you probably would have picked up on them telling you, hey, we pitched you for this and this and this, or they would have reached out to you. This is one option. The other option is you can start build your own relationships. And what a lot of musicians, bands, and artists underestimate is that this is kind of somewhat of a full-time job. Meaning, and this is a struggle for a lot of artists where, you know, you really need to be the artist full-time. And so I don't think that licensing is not like this kind of like magical gold rush secret, something where you can score a quick buck anymore. There is an avenue for, like, let's say, for example, you wanted to write a dark electronic album, and you had a band or you had something, and you wrote this, but it never went anywhere. So you have 15 tracks that where the music is kind of developed, but, you know, you haven't properly recorded the vocals or something. So this is just lying around. What you can do is you can polish this, you can figure out a good cover, something like this to unify it. And then you can say, okay, either I do this myself, or you find a home for it, like a licensing company or something, and they're exclusive, non-exclusive. And then rather than this music rotting on your hard disk, it might actually do something. And for film, often reduced stuff works really well. It is, though, like, I mean, it's a lot of the information is oversimplification. And when I've been to like the ASCAP expo here, when music supervisors tells you like, oh, you have to have your metadata really in shape. And it's one of those things, yeah, it helps a little if you have your metadata in shape, but the same music supervisor then also is in the pocket of somebody else and picks something for some reason, and it doesn't matter how good your metadata is or something. So what I suggest, best possible music, make sure you have all the assets available that they would possibly need. You need the lyrics, stuff needs to be registered, and you need to be able to deliver in a short amount of time, and you need to be realistic about budgets.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing this. I think this is very helpful to, let's say, get real.
Yeah. And I mean, one of the things that is important to me with this stuff, and the reason you're interviewing me is that you saw my class on Produce Like a Pro. And one of the things that I noticed and that I mentioned in that class as well is I talked to this music manager, and she's a wonderful person. She's a very ethical person, and she's trying to help the artists around her in a meaningful and ethical way. And we had coffee, and she just said, hey, I just saw this course where somebody charges like $500 to how to make it in the music industry. So the first thing she noticed is that guy himself hasn't made it in the music industry. That's the first thing, which is, by the way, kind of a standard. The second thing is that about 80% of the advice this guy gave is either nonsensical or plain wrong, or the opposite of what you should do, which is also pretty much a standard of what I see. So one of the things that is very important to me because I feel like I've been a lecturer for composition and other things. I feel protective of next generation musicians and the artists I work with, is to counter this disinformation a little bit. And one thing that I noticed is talking with my friend about this course is that it seems for music there's a lot of emotion involved, and very often these courses, these classes, and these things, what they do is they go, oh, and that's the purpose. So somebody gives you almost like a fake little, like a placebo, where it says, oh, if you do this, you can get that. And for a moment you watch this, you think, oh, this is amazing, I like this. While, as we all know, actual growth and actual learning is not something that happens all the time with a relaxed smile. You know, sometimes there is friction involved. So my thing with music is I do not like when to go around and like, yeah, everybody can do it, and like, you know, like have this kind of, I think this attitude is more hurtful than helpful. So I try to give kind of like, I try to be positive because I love what I do, and I understand that people that watch this love music, but there's also, you need to be a little bit realistic, and you know, there's clean information, much more clean information when you watch YouTube tutorials on how to, I don't know, how to use a compressor. That is not a bad, for you know, that there's plenty of good stuff about that. For a lot of the other things, it can be a little tricky.
Totally agree. I think also when somebody tried to, I get skeptical when somebody tried to sell me a shortcut.
Yeah.
I pay $500 for this course, and yeah, we have the community. I give you direct contacts to music supervisors and so on and so on. I think you found the perfect words to describe these courses.
So it goes in kind of like, it goes both ways. In one way, it means it's not, there's no, like, this is not a sprint. It's a long journey, and it takes a lot of sacrifices, and it takes a lot of, a lot of learning, a lot of other things. That's one thing. The other thing as well is that in a lot of these classes and a lot of these things, you get primed to, like, if you're a young female artist, and I work with a lot of young female artists, you get this thing like, oh, you're going to be the next Britney Spears or Taylor Swift or this and that. And basically by dangling the biggest golden carrot in front of somebody, you actually might hinder them to find their pocket and do something that actually works. And I mean, you're an interesting example for that. You are in Morocco surrounded by interesting musicians that that I don't have the privilege to work with, and you created a niche that basically allows you to make music and be surrounded by it. And so one of the things with these courses and when some of the stuff that is sold to you in social media is this thing that if you're a woman and you're 28 and you still live, let's say, somewhere in a tiny village like I grew up in, you're not going to be the next Taylor Swift. And it's foolish to try. However, you can be a fantastic singer-songwriter, and you can go a different route, and there's different things. And maybe, I don't know, last thing about this, that really, I like to read scientific papers and studies and weird stuff, and I just have weird interest. And I read this thing where I think it was Swedish university analyzed calf shapes for marathon winners and how the Achilles heel works and the calves, and they tried to figure out what would make somebody be a long distance runner. And they would like it's a very specific body type. You need to be very lean, and then they were also talking like how your calf muscles, if you're a long distance runner, how they're higher up than if you do this and that. It was really interesting. And I talked to a friend of mine who sees himself as a movie director, but who's not. And I told him this, and he got really offended because I said at some point, like you either are a marathon runner or a sprinter just by body type. You can't be both. And which is scientifically factual correct. You can, for fun, run a marathon and sprint, but you cannot be world class. There is just limitations here. And there's nothing wrong with that. But with music, with emotions and all of these things going on, people very often want to be both, and then they don't get either.
Yeah, I totally get you with this advice. This is really, really good. I think also it's the worst thing you can do, just telling somebody, yeah, your music is great, it's great, it's great. My whole life, I'm always seeking for honest feedback, because only with honest feedback you can course correct or get down a bit and see where are my strengths.
Yeah.
If everybody around you tells you all the time, oh, you're the best, you're the best, you're the best, you will learn nothing.
Yeah. Yes. And you have seen that in the background privately when I work on a song, there's a feedback loop involved. And I can trust my ears after all of these years, but I want to hear what my buddy who's a metal guitarist hears. And I want to hear what my friend who's a script developer hears, who has nothing to do with music but cares about story. And between these things, I hope to get as close as possible to kind of like somewhat of a universal truth. So by the time I release a song or an artist releases a song that I've produced, we know exactly where it sits. And yeah, I think that's very like this, the whole feedback thing is very important. And I'm not a fan of, I'm German, and I don't think all German bluntness always helps. Some of it really doesn't. But I studied in England and I live in the US now, and I noticed how it is sometimes harder in the UK or in the US to pick up on things because people are just so polite that an actual conversation sometimes doesn't happen.
Oh yeah, I get you.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for sharing this. I would jump into the next question, and this would be the best advice that you received during those times when you started to jump into film music.
The best advice. One of my composition professors, who also did a little bit of film, said to me, if the client wants you to compose the music in a lobster bib, compose the music in a lobster bib. And I think there is some truth to that. The other thing that really helped me is because the way I think is just I just wanna play, I just want to work on cool stuff. And so sometimes in the past I forgot to set boundaries. And then I read the 4-hour work week, which is generally a lot of hot air, so you don't need to investigate there. But he says one very good thing. He says this idea of the customer's king doesn't make a lot of sense. If you offer a good service for a fair price, you're both kings. And it's kind of so what I needed to learn was these both sides. On the one hand, if I work with an artist, if I work with a filmmaker or something, I'm in the service industry. That's very clear. I need to get them what they want. So that's very vital. The other thing as well is that I have spent so much time and I'm such a craftsman and I do good work on my end that I also deserve a certain consideration for it. And marrying these two sides, I think, is a struggle for anybody who works in a creative field. And so those two things are kind of, that's important advice, or was important advice for me.
Wow, thank you so much for sharing. And what would be the worst advice that you received during this time?
All right. What I find very often is that, when people talk about the pendulum swings this way and that way, I find very often that if you're kind of like on your skills, on the things that you're interested, if you're somebody like you like slow music that sounds like this and this, and you've worked in your life on this, and the pendulum is here, I find that very often success is on the other side. And it's a little bit like people say that like learning the second instrument is much easier. And so when people say stuff like, follow your heart or stuff like this, I always cringe a little, because there is something very, very true about this, where you need to find your happiness in what you do, but you may have not figured out really what it is. So I don't like all of this, like follow your heart, people will discover you, and all of these kind of things. Everything that basically makes you not think or deal with reality, I'm very I'm very cautious, and yeah, I cannot think of a specific moment when somebody gave me like really shitty advice that I took. So
Wow, I like this advice. This is really good. Like find your niche where you are happy, but
I think that it's also like I had a conversation with somebody here um, who called himself a producer. And producer is really has become the worst term to use because everybody who buys a MacBook Pro and now in GarageBand drags in 2 Apple loops is a producer. Thing about this is that because everybody is a producer, a producer doesn't need to hire another producer. So the guy that I was talking to really fundamentally was somebody who was very, very good with gear. So much so that he helped develop a microphone that is on sale, like that's been sold around the world. And good recording engineer, pretty sure he's a good mixing engineer as well. But he called himself a producer. So I can record, and I record my artist here. I would not call myself a recording engineer because recording engineers are nicer people than I am. I am the horrible person that needs to keep an eye on every moving part so the end result is out. So ideal scenario when I produce something is there's a recording engineer, and the recording engineer talks to the artist and does 90% of the things, and then I step up and say, hey, I need this. And so there's a little bit of a different personality, there's a little bit of different strengths and all of this. And so I think it's important that you do find your niche, but it might not be what you think it is, and it might not be the coolest thing that you think is the coolest thing. And I think that we all get tricked by our ego a little bit, and I 100% include myself here, where I don't know, like small example is I've been mixing a lot of film stuff, and I've also now kind of like backseat produced, like a band has recorded a song, it's well recorded, they have an okay mix, but it doesn't have the emotional impact. So there's already a mix, and then they send it to me, and I basically push it over the edge. So this is a cool thing for me to do. But what I really love about this is that if I only mix, there is the feedback round and the notes are very straight and very clean. So somebody says, hey, I need this a little louder, I think this is a little much. And then in a very short amount of time, you can make a client very happy. If you do film music, what can happen is that somebody calls you and says, well, you know, that scene where she's really sad, I hear that more green orange and your score sounds more blue yellow. And then you go, okay, can you explain that? And then you do 104 versions of something, and you find out at version 104 that really the problem is the filmmaker doesn't want to finish the song, the film. So what I'm using this example here to say that the emotional stress on mixing a project for me is a lot lower than on scoring a project. So these things kind of, you know, there's these little pockets of information where you kind of calibrate your career and your life and who you are to find something that makes you happy. And that might not be the most prestigious title, but it might lead to the best life.
Amazing advice. Thank you so much. I love always mixing with clients because I just send a song and I ask for a feedback list. Then you have 8 points. You work on this 8 points, you send it back, and usually it's done.
Yeah.
I can imagine. This leads actually to the next question with what kind of people you're working on your daily basis in the music industry, like music supervisor and so on.
I do work, so usually I work with a couple of artists loosely, or just one song, or like some simple co-writing where it's very like limited or short. Then I very often have an artist that I very deeply develop, where we do a whole album where I'm involved in the videos and other stuff, which I'm doing at the moment. And then it's music supervisors that need something, need a track, and filmmakers that either need a film mix or a film score. That's mainly, I sometimes work with publishers and A&Rs as well, but mainly it's the filmmakers or film producers and artist managers too.
Then I would come to the end of the interview and would love to ask you, what are your next steps and the next plans for 2021 for you?
Yeah, I mean, privately, once I can have normal meetings and normal all kinds of that again, I will treat myself to a long, big trip around at least Europe to make up for the one that I had to 80% cancel last year. I am working on a really interesting project in China where there's a theater built for just this project, and I'm going to score something that should be really cool, very, very cool images and 23.1 surround mix and that. I'm going to be, I guess, involved in the rollout of the album that I've just produced. The artist is called Amina. If you watch this, we should have a single out February 1st, 2021. Yeah, and then I don't know. Yeah, we'll see what else is in the pipeline.
Sounds exciting. Sounds very exciting. As soon as the video is out, I will put it down in the description as well so people can watch it. Where can people follow you or, for example, hire you?
I mean, the best way to find me is, or like my film music, because it's easy to update, is on Behance, that Adobe platform. So I don't know if I can send you the link and you can put it underneath. You can also find me on Facebook, and hopefully by, I don't know, February 2020, there's a new website. But I mean, you can just Google me and write on Facebook or anywhere. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing. Well, I'm just checking my list if we got anything else here. Do you have any top 3 bands that you discovered in this year that you like to share with us?
No, but maybe this is my problem is because I work with sound and music all day, that it's really difficult to be up to date, and really, really, really difficult. And over Christmas, I'm gonna try to ask all my friends to exactly recommend something like this so I get to listen to more. I have sound on here for 10 hours. When I'm done, I want to listen to an audiobook or a podcast or something to get in a different mindset. So it's a little tricky. I can't really recommend anything new at the moment.
Oh, no problem. Thank you so much, Lars, for your time.
Pleasure.
Really appreciate it for this insider view. I think many people can get a lot of information out of this podcast, and thanks to your information, for your valuable information.
Bye. Thank you.
Have an amazing day, and yeah, see you soon.
See you soon.